I thought it would be a bit of fun to have a look at sort of a roundup of everything from wheel stands to foldable cockpits to your sort of mid-level static cockpit, and then of course your what you might call top of the range aluminium profile cockpits. Now, whilst this isn't a complete roundup of every cockpit, wheel stand and foldable option available, it's a roundup of what I've got. And we've got a couple of each, so I figured why not sort of throw this video together where you can sort of see them all lined up beside one another. One of the things that's hard to sort of gauge when you're looking at video reviews of things is just how big they are, and especially compared to, you know, other alternatives in the range or what's available. So I thought with them all laid out like this, you can see, or as best as, I know this, it's not going to be the easiest thing to see because to get these all in shot, the camera's miles away. I actually can't even tell whether my head's being chopped off or not. I'm really hoping it isn't. I'm going to have to do it all again. And obviously if you're watching this on a mobile phone, you're not going to be able to see much in the way of detail. Of course, if you're watching it on a TV at home, you'll be just fine. But it's the best we can do with the space I've got and obviously the camera that I'm using. But nonetheless, I thought it might be quite interesting to see. So we've got a couple of offerings from GT Amiga. We've got their Apex wheel stand, which is the one right at the far end there. And that's probably the cheapest of the lot, I think. They do a slightly cheaper one called the Wheel Stand Classic, which essentially is the front half of the Art cockpit that we have here, just without the upright sections that your monitor stand would go into. And that's a little bit cheaper than what the Apex is. Then you've got your Apex. Then we've got the Next Level Racing DD wheel stand, which is the wheel stand that's going to have a very niche market for this stand, because you really have to have a need for a wheel stand to want to put direct drive wheels and high-end pedals and shifters on it. So whilst it exists, it's quite pricey compared to other wheel stands, but if you can afford a direct drive wheel, high-end pedals and shifter, and you need a wheel stand, there's your wheel stand. And then we go, and also both of those can have rear sections added onto them to turn them into full cockpits. The Apex rear half I do actually have here. The Wheel Stand DD I don't, because it's not out yet, but Next Level Racing do tell me that it is coming. So both of those can be converted or extended into a full-size cockpit, which is useful if maybe you're starting out and you want a cheaper, ignoring the Wheel Stand DD, a cheaper sort of solution to put your wheel and pedals and shifter on versus one of these. You're not sure maybe whether you're going to get into it enough to want to invest the money. But then later on you realise, yeah, you're enjoying it and you want to buy the arse end to slot on the back, turn it into a full cockpit. So that's useful to be able to do that. Then we've got two foldable options here. The classic and stupidly popular Playseat Challenge, and then the recently released Next Level Racing GT Lite. These are very similarly priced. And as you can see here, the GT Lite's a little bit bigger. The Next Level, the Playseat Challenge is that little bit smaller. Now, the only real sort of thing you think about here is it's going to be the size of you. If you're a big guy, you may want, the bigger option. I fit just fine in the Playseat Challenge, just to give you a point of reference. But yeah, they're both good options. This is a bit of a ball ache to fold away, whereas this definitely folds away faster. But as far as foldable options go, they're both about the same price. They both accommodate all your usual entry to mid-level wheels, pedals and shifters. The Playseat doesn't of course come with the shifter mount as standard. You would have to get one, whereas this one does. I won't compare too much, but it's just more so you can see, the size difference and what's available really. And then after because these are technically full cockpits, whereas the wheel stands are half a cockpit. So these are probably your cheapest full cockpit options, because I think at just under 200 notes, I think that's still cheaper than the GT Amiga Art with a seat. So yeah, they're probably, I'd have to check, but I think these are probably the cheapest full cockpits, even though they do fold away and they're not static. So then we get up to something like the GT Amiga Art, which is what we've got here with the RS6 seat on. And like I mentioned earlier, the wheel stand classic from GT Amiga is basically just the front half without those two uprights there. But that has its drawbacks because that means the classic wheel stand's a little bit more wobbly than what this is. So this was my first full cockpit. I actually started out with a wheel stand classic. Well, I started out on my desk, like a lot of us probably do, with Logitech G920. And then I got the wheel stand classic, and obviously you put a chair behind it. And then I moved up to this, which I've only recently replaced. I've had this for a good 2 or 3 years now, and it's done me just fine. Again, there's full reviews of all of these, everything you see here on the channel. I have discount links for anything from GT Amiga. I don't from Next Level Racing. Unfortunately, they don't, well, at least they didn't offer me anything. I did ask. But there will be links for Amazon and eBay and whatnot. There is on the individual reviews as well, should you want to buy one. And should you want to save some money off the GT Amiga stuff. So yeah, first full static cockpit that isn't mega money, the GT Amiga Art. They do a pro version. And also, when you put the back end on the Apex wheel stand, that's actually, it's going to be an interesting, I'm actually going to do a comparison of those two side by side, because I think price-wise, they're probably very similar at that point. And I'm interested, and I'm sure some of you are, because you've asked me whether I would recommend buying an Art or an Apex with the rear half attached. So I'll get them two side by side with the arse end on, and we'll have a little back-to-back comparison and see. That'll help people make a decision, won't it? So yeah, this is your first full static cockpit. Doesn't fold away, obviously, and it's made of box sections, so you can modify it easier, drill, bolt, attach things to it. You know, I had a motion platform on here, tactile transducers, wind simulation, digital dashboard, handbrake, you know, the lot. Whereas when you're looking at the foldable options, you can put things on to a certain extent. There is in fact a handbrake bolted on right there now to the Playseat Challenge. But because of its tubular construction, it's not as easy to just, pardon me, bolt things on. So, you know, pros and cons, but again, they fold away, and usually you're buying something foldable because you need it to fold away. So yeah, you move up to something more solid. It's more solid to start with. These definitely wobble about a lot more than what something like the Art cockpit does. So, you know, when it comes to sim racing, especially with lower end wheels that don't have a lot of torque, you want your rig to be as solid as possible so that it doesn't dampen the force feedback effects. So that's a positive, going from one of these sort of foldable options up to a full static cockpit, and then there's a customization as well. And then finally, representing the sort of top of the range, if you will, sim racing cockpits, we've got an aluminium profile GT Amiga Prime cockpit. Now this is much like any other aluminium profile rig. It's all made of aluminium profile, varying thicknesses. And what's important about these is the quality of the wheel deck construction, the pedal deck construction, and things like where the uprights are bolted on. This, they use big steel plates to bolt them on, or could be aluminium plates, but big plates versus just a tiny little corner brackets. And these are things you need to look at when you're looking for an aluminium profile rig. Again, there's cheaper ones than this, there's more expensive ones than this. The only negative about this particular one, I would say, when comparing to more expensive ones, is more expensive ones do have a more solid pedal deck. This isn't a thick sort of 5 or 10 mil steel plate. It's probably only 2 or 3 mil with some bracing across it. So it isn't as solid as some of the other options. But in my experience with my Fanatic V3s on there, and of course I tried it with the Logitech as well, there's no problem. There's not any noticeable flex whilst you're driving. And if you were to fit individual pedals, then you should always, if you've got this one, opt to buy the optional big thick plate that will come with those high-end pedals. You know, whether you're buying it from HE or ProSim or wherever else, they all do an optional big thick plate to bolt the pedals to. You could then bolt that to the pedal deck, and that would eliminate any of the problems that you may have with flex if you were to fit individual pedals into the slots. But this, you know, price-wise, we're talking, I think this is about 550 quid. I think it might be with the seat as well, possibly 600. And then you're looking down, I think this is somewhere in the region of 250 to 3. And then you come down to sort of just under £200. And then if we ignore the wheel stand DD, because that's something like 240 quid, I think, which is a lot for a wheel stand. Ignore that one. Go to normal wheel stands. You're looking sort of, I think that one's, what are they, 150, 160 maybe? And then the wheel stand classic is a bit cheaper, still 110, 120. So it's all sort of incrementally priced with the exclusion of the wheel stand DD, which is, you know, priced that a bit higher because of its heft. Although it isn't that much more solid than the Apex, but if you're spending money on direct drive wheels, high-end pedals, shifters, you may as well get the best wheel stand you can. So that really is, I suppose that's really the end of the video. It's just to sort of lay them all out there for everyone to have a look in a row and just see sort of how much space they all take up compared to one another, and how things go incrementally. You know, you gain, when you go from a wheel stand even to a fold-away cockpit, the seat is at least fixed to the front half, so you don't have any issues with seats tipping backwards, or if you've got a, you know, an office chair with wheels on, you ain't going to be sliding away when you go from those to these, you know. Or if you then add the back halves, that's the other option. If you need fold away, these are your fold away options realistically. The X-Rocker one that's available, that's basically a carbon copy of the Playseat. I've never tried one, but speaking to some of you guys in the comments, from what I understand, the construction is quite a bit cheaper and flimsier than what the Playseat is, and I've had reports again from you guys of them breaking, and I think even some of them mentioned there's wooden slats or something under the seat. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I haven't got one of those. So these really are the tried and tested. You know, usually things are cheap for a reason is always a good rule of thumb to live by, and if it seems too good to be true, of course it usually is. Ori seems to favour today the Next Level Racing GT Lite. Quite often she favours the Playseat, although the plugs, the cables and the power pack are all on the seat, so maybe that's why she's in this one today. Or maybe she just wants the extra space. Who knows? If only she could speak, I'm sure she'd tell me. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Any questions about these or anything else, as always, put them in the comments. I read them every day. I try and respond to you all, and I do appreciate the feedback. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and as always, take it easy.